Well, there's Vicky. Oh, come on, give it, do it. Okay. Um, Hello to everybody. I'm Alice Steiner, and I'm going to moderate this meeting. Um, I want very much to thank Commissioner Verona Sagota-Mauga for spending time with us today. Commissioner, we are really, really pleased to have you. This is an issue, policing in Salt Lake City is an issue that is of great interest and concern to all of us. And so hearing more about what the Racial Equity in Policing Commission is doing will be um, very helpful to us in sort of understanding what the issues are and how they are being addressed. So, Commissioner Mag, is it, do I say your right last name by Mauga, or what would be the best way to address you?
It's Mauga. So
Mauga.
yeah.
Okay. So Commissioner Mauga, we are the League of Women Voters. We're representatives of the League of Women Voters. Do you know anything about the league, or should I give you a quick rundown on sort of what the league is about?
I'd love to have a quick rundown.
Okay. The League of Women Voters is actually it's an organization that was formed right after women got the right to vote, with the basic goal of doing basically two things. One is to register voters to make sure that women got out and voted, and the second one was to educate women as to the issues in the community, so when they cast their votes, they would be well informed. And at this point in time, there's thousands of leagues around the United States. There's a national league, and then there's state leagues, and then there's county leagues. And the discussion group, which you are part of, is a discussion group within the Salt Lake County League of Women Voters. And so we are interested in learning about issues within our cities and counties, and that have policy implications that the league may choose to be active on. The league uh, takes positions on a variety of issues in the community, but typically when we take a position, it's done after a study, and then we get the league members together. We talk about the study, come up with ideas and issues that we want the league to support, come to consensus on those, and then the league takes a position on those issues. Um, so anyhow, that's who we are. And now I will attempt to introduce you. Okay. I know that you are one of the 6 core members of the Racial Equity in Policing Commission. And that commission that was created by the mayor and the city council, so that they could work together to try to address the issue of racial equity in policing. And as I understand it, the ultimate goal of the commission is to produce recommendations to then be implemented by the mayor and the city council. Um, and as I understand it as well, you're in your um, real life. You are the executive director of Renew Wellness and Recovery, which is a nonprofit dedicated to drug rehabilitation and healing for women. So we welcome you. We are very, very happy to have you be here. And I think it would probably be worthwhile if you just dove in and started talking to us about the commission. And I'm sorry, I always do this, but please, everybody, put yourself on mute. If you have questions you want to raise, could you please type them into the chat section, so that we're not all trying to talk at the same time and not everybody gets heard. Um, and then what I will do once I see you have a question, I will ask you to unmute yourself and please ask a question, but please don't interrupt until Commissioner Mauga is ready to have us ask questions. Okay. Um, Commissioner Mauga, welcome, and we're dying to hear from you.
Thank you, Alice. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you, ladies, for having me. Um, I love what you're doing, and I love what you stand for and what you do to educate our community and women on the issues. Okay, well, I'll just jump right into it. I am one of the commissioners on the Racial Equity and Policing Commission for the Salt Lake Police Department. Our three main goals, our three pillars are policy, community engagement, and budget. And we've actually broke things down into three subcommittees. The subcommittees are training, policy and planning practices, and school safety, so SRO issues. And I'm actually part of the training commission. And what we are doing and what our hope is that we can make some educated, data-driven decisions based on what is currently happening within the Salt Lake PD, based on their current training procedures and policy manuals. And the big thing for us, and one of the main reasons I wanted to be on the training commission, is because we can have policies and procedures, and we can have manuals and training classes, but nothing really changes unless we change culture. And so a lot of what we're doing is it's important for us to look at the individuals we're hiring to serve our community. And again, we can have all those things, and we can have the best manuals and policies and guidelines in place, but if the people who are serving our community aren't community engaged people, community cultured people, it doesn't matter how well written everything is, or what's on paper. And so a lot of what we're doing is we're looking at shifting the culture within the Salt Lake Police Department. And we know that we can't get to that place by doing our own research on our own and then coming at them and saying, this is what we're going to do, these are our recommendations. So in order for this to work, it's a two-way street, and we are engaged with the police department. Chief Mike Brown is at almost every meeting. We have lieutenants on our call, a lot of Salt Lake PD leadership on our phone calls, and we're even encouraging our commissioners when we can practice this to go out on ride-alongs, to participate in a lot of their trainings, just so that we have firsthand experience and that we come from a place of understanding. We need them to understand us just as much as we need to understand the police force. And so that's really the background and the idea behind everything that we're doing is trying to work from a place of understanding. It's also very important to us that we involve our community. Right now, we don't have community engagement in the police academy or in any of the training at Salt Lake PD. And so our hope is that we can fill that gap and get some community engagement so that it's something that we're all working towards together to create this culture shift within the police department. So I'll talk a little bit about the subgroups. So our SRO subcommittee, we're really looking at some policies that affect our students, especially specifically our students of color in Salt Lake City, who are affected by the school to prison pipeline. And I'm not saying that there hasn't been any work that's already done. I'd like to acknowledge the work that Sandra Hollins has been doing, and a lot of our community organizations and the ACLU has been doing. But we think we have a really strong group, and the more we educate ourselves and the more we look into the policies and work with our communities and our students and parents, we believe that there's a lot more recommendations that we'll be able to make to the city council to start making some changes in our schools that are affecting our children. We also have the policy and planning subcommittee. Now this subcommittee is going through the manual and looking at all the policies and procedures. And we're looking at what policies need to be changed, what policies need to be reworded. Because we have some policies in there that I think the idea behind it is valid and strong. But the way some of these policies are worded necessarily protecting our citizens and our community. And so those are some of the things that we're looking at. In the training subcommittee that I'm a part of, again, culture is a big thing for us. We just had a subcommittee meeting last night with Chief Mike Brown, his new executive chief, and the lieutenant last night. And so right now, everything that we're doing is it's really information gathering, and we are just trying to gather as much information so that we can start recommending some changes to really shift the culture and shift just some of the things that have been happening. I'd like to see a more involved community with our police departments. I think that would be great as far as understanding each other and just being able to humanize each other. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. We meet with the city council quarterly and the mayor to make recommendations. Just yesterday, we work with facilitators. They are called the Langdon Group, and they help guide us. They've done this work for years, and it was through thorough review that we chose them to work with us. But they are definitely a great group. And so yeah, they just met with the city council and the mayor yesterday, just giving them an overview of what we're doing. Again, as I said, this is really an information gathering stage for us. As soon as we can have our next meeting, we're hoping to have some policy recommendations. We're also going to start doing some community listening sessions. Now with COVID, it's going to look a little bit different. We can't get into the communities like we had hoped to. And talk to people face to face, but we're going to do as much as we can on Zoom, virtually, through surveys. And when I talk about communities, we're going to be very thoughtful in this. So we want to talk to groups of women like you, and we want to talk to the various ethnic groups, our refugee community, students and parents. We'll be doing some focus groups with the community and with the police department. So I think there's an opportunity through those community groups, not only to gather some really good information, but to start understanding each other and understanding each other's different views and perspectives.
Thank you. Can we ask questions?
Yeah, of course.
A couple people gave me questions beforehand, and so I will pose those. And I know Kathy Biele has a question as well. So let me first ask a couple quick questions. One of the things that has been talked about a lot in the media is the term defund the police. And I believe it has alarmed many people. I know it was one of the issues raised in the presidential campaign. When that term is used, what does it mean to the commission?
You know, as a commission, we've never had conversations about defunding the police. One of the things we are talking about is funding the police and how we fund them, and how to use those funds appropriately, because we want our police officers to be trained. We want them to have the best training so that they can serve our communities the best way. But we're gathering as much information as we can right now, hoping to make recommendations on funding and how those funds are allocated within the police department and also within the community. One of the things a lot of us have talked about individually is what programs and partnerships does that funding go to? And so we've never talked about defunding the police, but we are very thoughtful of how we fund them appropriately.
Thank you. And then another question that has come up prior to the meeting is whether the commission will be discussing expanding the work of crisis intervention teams who work with the police.
Yes, that's something that we discussed last night in our subcommittee meeting. Salt Lake Police Department has already implemented a lot of steps that are necessary to get to where I think our community thinks we need to be to really serve our community best. One of the things we talked about is partnerships with community organizations and the universities. One of the main things that we're talking about is um, use of force, personal practices, and then again, funding. Um, and so it's important for us to have leadership within the police department with a mental health background. And not everyone has that. And so some of the supports that are coming in that we've discussed is again, working with community partners, organizations, nonprofits, and the universities to make sure that they have the necessary tools to serve and the right training.
And I assume you're getting reports back from the police on whether they feel that the programs, crisis intervention teams, et cetera, have been successful, or whether they're responding saying, well, this isn't working at all for us.
I know that they are seeing changes. I don't know exactly what that looks like as far as in the reports, but just talking to them, they've explained and expressed to us that they have started to see a shift in the way some things are handled. They did bring up to us yesterday that we see all the negative, right? We see all the negativity on the news, and we're not seeing what changes they have made. In my in my business that I have, it's actually located in Harriman, and I believe Salt Lake PD is working along the same lines. And I can personally say that I've seen some changes as far as the way they respond to mental health. Here specifically, 2 to 3 years ago, I think when a client was being unsafe to themselves or to a staff, and we'd call law enforcement, they would come in very just matter of fact and aggressive, and it would scare our clients and our employees. In the last year, I can point out several instances where we've called the police department, and I had a police officer chase a client down the street and grab her and hold her and tell her that she's safe. I've had one come in to renew and lay on the floor next to a client just to get on her level. I haven't seen those personal experiences at Salt Lake PD because I don't have a business over there, and I haven't had to call them. But I do know that they're utilizing very similar national practices. And so they're informing us that that's what's happening there. And so the goal is to get better data, to get better reporting, so that we know that this is really happening and we have data to back it.
Kathy Biele, would you like to pose your question? And then Millie after Kathy.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Alice. I'm interested in what's going on with citizen review boards. I know Salt Lake long ago had a citizen review board. I'm not sure that we still do, and if there are any plans to go forward with something like that.
Katharine, I'm not sure. I'm not 100% on citizen review boards. We haven't really talked about it. But I know that when I became a commissioner, I went through and looked, and I believe I saw something about a citizen review board. I believe there is actually a board for Salt Lake City. I'm not 100% sure, but I can find out and get some more information and send it over to Alice for you.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. I mean, even if we have one, we're not hearing about it. And I think that's an important
Yeah.
step. We need to know what they're doing.
For sure, I agree with you. And just so you know, if you're not aware of this, Salt Lake City, all their meetings are online. And so if there is a citizen review board, which I believe their meetings should be open to the public, but I'll follow up and send that info to Alice.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Millie and then Janine. Millie, you're on mute.
All right. Verona, you are on the training committee, is that correct?
That's correct.
And then there must be other committees. Will you tell me what they are, please? If you
Yeah.
said so, I've missed it.
You're totally fine. So we have 2 more subcommittees. We have the policy and planning practices. Right now, policy and planning is working on use of force, personal practices, and funding. They will go through all of the policies in the Policy and Procedures Manual for Salt Lake PD, and that's something that we'll review and discuss and make recommendations on. And then we have the SRO subcommittee, where they're really working on addressing the school to prison pipeline.
Okay, so those three threads to that right now, right?
That's correct.
And then one follow-up question. I can't imagine, are you working as a group in isolation, just Salt Lake City, or are you being informed in other ways from other communities around the country and around the state? Do you share data, share information across those platforms?
Yes, we are. So we're actually reviewing the 21st Century report, which is a national report. And if you guys are interested in reviewing it, I'd be more than happy to send it your way. We're kind of using that as our guideline on what changes and just some different things that we can look at and make recommendations based off of.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Janine, it's your turn, and then Susie Sandow.
Yes, I was wondering if the public can attend your Zooms that you have.
Yes, all of our meetings, our commission meetings and our subcommission meetings, they are all open to the public. We also have a youth subcommittee, which I forgot to mention, and they are amazing. Like, before we start working on policies or talk about issues, they are already working on it. They meet on their own every Saturday. And then when we have our commission meetings, 3 of them will attend as voting members. But they're really sharp. I think the age is from 16 to 25 years old. But we have some young leaders. You're welcome to join their meetings as well.
Where do you find those meetings?
It's if you go to the Salt Lake government page or the Salt Lake City Council page, you'll be able to get that information. And all the meetings, there's a page that lists all the boards and councils. And I believe majority of those meetings are open to the public.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Susie, and then Abby.
Okay, can you hear me? Sometimes my audio messes up.
We can hear you.
Okay, your presentation caused me to ask 2 questions, and well, 3 really. Millie answered the first one, SRO standing for School Resource Officer. Thanks, Millie. My other question has to do with is the training that you're focusing on with the committee does it extend beyond just officers on the street? Does it include staff, everybody from a dispatcher to people who aren't, investigators and detectives and people who are not necessarily on the street?
Yes, it does. Right now, we're looking at the training involving not just Salt Lake police officers, but Salt Lake police employees. And so we're not just focused on incoming training or the academy. We're looking at the training and ongoing training.
And that includes even volunteers. When Kathy brings up citizen boards, I know there's some effort, at least when the homeless effort started, there were a lot of volunteers in the community going, social workers going with police officers. I'm assuming those are included as well.
We haven't touched on that yet, to be honest, but I'm sure we'll get to that. I'll definitely note it. Valid point. It's very important that we have our social workers and whoever is in partnership with the police department.
And let me ask one more question about your effort with the schools. It's been decades where there's a controversy about the curriculum itself in terms of how much is included about real facts with ethnicities and culture, especially in the Black community being represented in the curriculum. Is there, does the commission see that they can have any influence on with either the State Board of Education or Salt Lake City School Districts about curriculum?
That's actually out of the scope of the work that we're doing. As far as curriculum goes, our real focus is working with our school resource officers and having a discussion and making recommendations on what force looks like in school and how we address our students. We don't want our students to feel like you can't ever do anything wrong because you're gonna be thrown to the ground or go to jail or or get arrested because you did something that is normal for a student or a kid to do. And so that's our real focus, is making sure that they're following best practices and that school is a safe place for our students. And going to school doesn't mean won't take you to prison.
I understand.
Okay, Abby and then Robin.
Hi, I'm wondering if you guys do, or if you will, discuss if lethal weapons are necessary for SLCP or SLCPD to have with them.
That's definitely something that we're looking at, Abby. And when we talk about best practices, we want to evaluate and look at what is the best use of force and the best use of their weapons, and so that's definitely something that we're looking at and we're discussing right now.
Okay, Robin and then Connie. Robin, you're on mute.
Okay, great, thank you. So I was wondering about what kinds of training the police are currently receiving or had received before the start of this commission. Like what sort of training exists within the department about community engagement? And
I know that they're doing some community engagement. I know that they were trying to get police officers out to, they were in the schools and they were meeting with different organizations. They were holding different events where they have been working with the community. So they have been doing some of those things. As far as the other trainings that they're doing, I know that they have a bias training that they're doing. There's some culture diversity trainings, but what we're doing is we want to look at how effective their training is and recommend changes and make recommendations based on some of the information that we're gathering. We want to be able to gather data from the other police officers and community to see if those things are working and what necessary changes need to be made.
Thank you. Connie and then Catherine.
Okay, you mentioned a very important fact, in my opinion, that you believe in hiring the right people to become a police officer right from the get-go. The brochures and manual updates really don't make a difference unless you have the right person in the job. Are you aware if police candidates are given any kind of psychological testing or personality inventories, that kind of thing?
Yes, I know that they do in the very beginning when they're going through the academy. I don't know that they do it ever again unless some issue comes up within the police department. Like they've been involved in some incident which might require to do another evaluation. And so that's something that's really important. We'd like that to happen more often. But yeah, it's important that we're bringing in the right individuals and we're asking the right questions. And I think also throughout their career, it's important to reevaluate who you are as a person and what your desire is to serve and why you're there as a police officer.
Catherine Fitzgerald, it's your turn.
Hi, I'm wondering what the current status of the Salt Lake K-9 Corps is. Has it been disbanded? Is it under review? Are there programs for retraining? Are you working with any of that?
We are, that's one of the things that we're definitely looking at in our policies. That's a big deal for us. It's a hot topic. And so we are reviewing that as a commission. I don't believe that it's been disbanded. I know that it was on pause. I don't know how long. I really couldn't speak to that. But as a commission, we are looking at making some recommendations in the future.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Commissioner Mauga, this is Alice Steiner again. And I've gotten, in the process of putting this meeting together, I've gotten information sent to me. And in one case, I was sent something that told me about that District Attorney Sim Gill had written a report. And I'm wondering if those sorts of things are coming up before the commission. And then I also have something here from, I have to find the name of the group. It's a citizens group that has been working together to try to come up with recommendations. And are these things coming up to the commission, or is there a place that they should be filed with the commission so that the commission is aware of them, et cetera?
Whenever the district attorney does release a report, we do get a copy of that and we do discuss as a commission. As far as citizens groups, we are open to meeting with any organizations or groups if it's going to better the work and help us with what we're doing. We don't receive any information from the city like, hey, there's a citizens group, unless you reach out and request to meet with us or request that we get that information.
Okay, thank you. Folks, okay, we have more questions here. Kathy Biele again. And then Tina.
Did you miss Kirby Coyle? I saw her question up there. Oh, sorry. Anyway, I'm just wondering how is the legislature responding to the whole police violence issue? Are you receiving any input or giving them any input? I know there's been tension in the past between Salt Lake City and the legislature.
We have not given the legislature any input. When we do start making recommendations, we are hoping that some of the leaders in our community will support it and just acknowledge it publicly so that we can get support of our community. And so I think that's something that will probably happen. I know that the legislature is working on some legislation. I don't know what specifically or where they're at this point. That is a little bit out of our scope, but we do hope to have support when we start making those recommendations from our different community leaders.
Tina, and then Joan. Tina, you must be on mute.
Commissioner, sorry. I served on the Salt Lake City Civil Service Commission a number of years ago. That commission oversaw the entry level and promotional testing processes for both the police and fire departments. And the psychological was a part of that pre-screening process, to answer one of our other members' questions. But I think you're right. No other psychological exams followed that other than pre-screening to become a police officer. Are you working with the Civil Service Commission in terms of pre-testing, pre-screening, setting up examination processes to change the diversity of the applicant pool or to seek out a more diverse applicant pool?
At this point, we haven't worked with the Civil Service Commission. It is something that we're definitely open to doing. Again, right now it's information gathering, and we're meeting with a lot of different groups, organizations, and law enforcement right now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Joan, you are next.
Okay, it took me a minute to unmute. How much will the audit cost of the police department?
Sorry, what was that?
The audit that the city commission is undertaking, they're having firms are giving quotes of how much they will charge the city of Salt Lake to audit the police department. How much will that cost?
Right now, I don't have any numbers on that. I don't know what that's going to look like. I know that before the commission was formed, the city council set aside a budget. What that number is, I'm not aware of it at this point.
So Commissioner, this is Alice Steiner again. When you mentioned in your introductory comments that the commission would be working with the city council on the budgeting question. And so which I was very glad to hear. I guess my question is that part of that is going to come out of this zero-based budgeting process that they're going to go through with some auditing company, which I don't really know how the proposals have been responded to, et cetera. Is each committee going to work on that independently to sort of give feedback on where they think monies need to be moved around? That's actually a fairly complicated thing to try to build the budget.
Right. So how the subcommittees work is they will do the legwork, but the commission as a whole will discuss and make recommendations together and vote on that.
So, ladies, do we have other questions? Ladies and gentlemen, do we have other questions? Here's so Millie Fletcher wants to let us know. Millie, why don't you get on and tell us about it, and I can then forward the email to everybody.
All right, I'll do that. Thank you, Alice. Just for a reminder to some of you, and then information to those who may not know, tomorrow, Thursday, November 12th at 4 p.m., there will be a webinar. The speaker is Brandon Hatch, who is the director of the Davis County Mental Health. Davis County, some years ago, implemented a pilot program that has been a pilot program for the liaison between Davis County Mental Health and the Bountiful City Police Department. With their attempt is to short circuit the legal defense side for problems that are created by drug abuse and mental health issues. They were so successful in their pilot program that they've extended the services to all municipalities in Davis County. Of course, this addresses only one thread of the problems that we're faced with, but just the same, I think that webinar might be of interest to some of you, because he will be talking about that partnership and how it was formed and what they are seeing in terms of success. So that's just information for you. Tomorrow, Thursday, November 12th at 4 p.m. And Kathy has put this on the calendar, so the Zoom information, you can find the Zoom information there.
So Commissioner
Alice,
yes.
I have a question.
Great.
We've had a very successful crisis intervention team in the past. I've used it repeatedly in my psychology practice by sending a social worker in first, followed immediately by police officers. I wonder, one, why that isn't getting the attention it needs to now. And I also want to know if de-escalation training is given to all police officers, not just the social workers in this crisis intervention team.
Yes, all police officers are receiving de-escalation training. And I'm wondering too why that isn't getting more attention, because I think that's very important. If that could happen every single time, that would be the best thing. And so that's definitely something that we can look at and see what's going on there.
So Commissioner
Thank
Mauga, this is Alice Steiner again. I realize you're at the very beginning of the investigation part of the work you have to do. And I'm wondering if you have any sense of when you will be coming up with recommendations and what the process will be once you start to formulate recommendations in terms of getting feedback from the community on what's being proposed and then the timing as well.
So I think it'll happen soon, the first set of recommendations in the next few weeks. But the closer we get to that, when we've decided on what our recommendations are and what direction we're actually going to go in, we will let the public know. You'll have time, you can come to our meetings, and we have public hearings for you to speak and comment and give your opinion on those recommendations before we give our final recommendations to the City Council.
I also have a question, since we no longer seem to have daily newspapers, or will not in the coming year. Is there a strategy to get information out to the public when that normal sort of focus of information is now curtailed?
Right now, it'll be on the City Council social media pages, on the Salt Lake government pages, and we will probably be doing some interviews with the media as we move along and want to get that information shared.
You all may see that Commissioner Mauga has given us her email address as well as her phone number in the chat bar, so you may want to write that down if you have follow-up questions you want to make. And are there other questions out there for the commissioner? Well, Commissioner, I'm just amazed at how much work there is to try to address the issues that the commission has been asked to address. And I'm really thankful that we have such great people sort of sitting down and trying to think these things through, to get feedback, to work with the police, to pull all of that information together to try to come up with some hopefully very helpful and useful and successful ways to proceed, so that we don't have to keep being afraid for various and sundry members of our community in their interactions with the police. So I do thank you very, very much. And I thank you as well for joining us at the meeting today. It's been absolutely wonderful to hear from you and to hear about the commission.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been my pleasure to meet with you guys, and write down my phone number and my email. I'd love to hear from you, and I hope to see you guys again soon and to talk to you soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.